There is a hard truth most people do not like to hear. Women are not attracted to you because you are too nice. They are attracted because you touch the right psychological triggers that make them think. Most men fail, not because they do not care enough, but because they are too predictable, too safe, and create no emotional friction at all. You can be polite, kind, and a good listener. But if everything around you feels flat and expected, there is no reason for her mind to stay on you. Attraction is not born from the feeling of he seems fine, but from the feeling of there is something about this man that keeps pulling my attention back. This video is for men who have been in that exact situation. The conversation is decent, you are liked, but you always end up stuck as just a friend or the nice guy. And if you keep communicating the same way, the result will never change, no matter how many different women you meet. In this video, I will talk about attraction strategies based on very real psychological weaknesses, not to manipulate anyone, but to help you understand why certain behaviors make women think more, invest emotionally more deeply, and have a harder time forgetting you. These are not clever lines or surface-level tricks. This is how psychological dynamics actually work in real life. The most important part is at the end of the video, where I will point out the extremely thin line between creating attraction and completely destroying the connection just by using the wrong context. If you want to understand that line and stop repeating the same familiar mistakes, subscribe to the channel now. The content here does not teach you to pretend to be someone else. It helps you understand how real attraction is actually formed. The core problem for most men is not that they do not know how to talk. It is that they are always trying to be agreeable. They are afraid of upsetting someone, afraid of being judged, afraid of rejection. So they unconsciously adjust their behavior to keep everything smooth and pleasant. But that very smoothness is what kills attraction. When you are constantly trying to be proper, you send a very clear signal. You need approval. And when someone communicates from a place of needing approval, they automatically place themselves in a lower position within the interaction. Women sense this extremely quickly, even if they cannot put it into words. The result is that you may be liked, but you are not desired. What is even more dangerous is that this sense of being safe is often disguised under very positive sounding labels: respect, care, emotional awareness. But if all of that comes from a fear of doing something wrong, then it is no longer confidence. It is avoidance. And where there is no emotional friction, there is no attraction. If you do not recognize this problem and continue communicating the same way, you will fall into a very familiar loop. At first, things feel pretty good. She is friendly, relaxed, open. You start to hope. But over time, her curiosity fades, her level of investment does not increase, and eventually there is a quiet kind of distance. No drama, no confrontation, but enough to leave you feeling like something was missing. This does not happen because you are lacking. It happens because you create no psychological pull at all. When everything is too predictable, the brain has no reason to stay engaged. And if you do not change how you show up in interactions, you can meet new people in new situations, but the outcome will stay the same. One of the biggest misunderstandings men have is believing that to be attractive, they must be consistent, clear, and always proper. In reality, the human mind is not held by perfection. It is held by what has not been fully explained yet. Attraction does not come from the feeling that everything is fine. It comes from the feeling that there is something about this person I have not fully figured out. When you consistently show only one side of yourself, always calm, always kind, always predictable, you unintentionally make yourself feel flat. Not because you lack value, but because there is no contrast to create emphasis. Attraction needs small contradictions, being close yet distant, confident yet hard to read, warm but with clear boundaries. This does not mean you need to act or perform. On the contrary, it requires you to show real parts of yourself that are simply unfamiliar. Being willing to disagree, being willing to hold your own opinions, being willing to not please. When you do this calmly, you create psychological pull. The mind starts asking questions, and when there are questions, there is attention. Another important perspective is this: attraction does not come from you chasing, but from you being chased. But that never happens if you always place the other person at the center and push yourself to the edge. When you have standards, boundaries, and you do not rush to please, you force the other person to adjust how they see you and how much they invest. So instead of asking, "What should I say to be liked?" the better question is, "What does it feel like to be around me?" When you understand that attraction is built from subtle tension and clear boundaries, the way you communicate begins to change entirely. In the next part, I will summarize the core psychological principles behind those contradictions and boundaries so you understand when to create pull and when to hold back before moving into specific real-life situations. The first principle you need to understand clearly is this: attraction does not come from pleasing, but from activating emotional attention. The human brain does not attach itself to things that are always predictable and safe. It attaches to things that force it to think, compare, and question itself. When an interaction makes someone think about it afterward, attraction begins to form. The second principle is this: value is only felt when there are boundaries. If you always agree, always compliment, always stay available, then every form of approval you give loses its weight. In contrast, when you have standards, moments of disagreement, moments where you hold back your judgment, your attention becomes something that must be earned. That lack of constant availability is what creates pull. The third principle is this: a small amount of controlled contradiction makes emotions feel alive. When you show interest but keep distance, when you are warm yet independent, you create a light emotional fluctuation. That fluctuation makes it harder for the other person to fully predict you, and what is hard to predict is often what the brain prioritizes. Finally, it is important to make a clear distinction. Understanding psychology does not mean manipulation. These principles only work when you use them from a calm and respectful state. If you use them to control, retaliate, or prove something, they backfire very quickly. Real attraction always comes with self-control, not tense calculation. In the next section, I will turn these principles into 5 very real situations, along with wrong reactions, correct reactions, and specific conversation examples, so you can see when to apply them and when not to. The first situation: she starts talking to you in a very familiar, safe way. At this stage in her mind, you are slowly being placed into the already confirmed category, meaning there is nothing surprising left. The wrong reaction many men have is to maintain that comfort by agreeing with everything, matching her rhythm, and avoiding any friction out of fear of ruining the mood. This makes your image even flatter. The correct reaction is to keep the comfort, but add a small deviation. For example, "I thought you would be harder to get close to." This line does not deny, criticize, or attack, but it is enough to make her brain slightly adjust how she sees herself and how she sees you. If you do not create this deviation, she will continue the conversation without needing to invest emotionally any further. The second situation: she talks a lot about herself and waits for your validation. In this moment, she is subtly looking for approval. The common wrong reaction is to compliment her right away to maintain the connection, because men are often afraid of seeming cold or uninterested. But when you validate too quickly, that validation loses its value. The correct reaction is to not place her at the absolute center. For example, "That sounds interesting, but I usually notice people who are a bit quieter." This line triggers a quiet comparison in her mind. If used too early or with a judgmental tone, it will backfire. But when delivered at the right moment, it makes her start investing in order to impress you. The third situation, she talks about something she is very confident about and is used to being praised for. At this point, she often already expects your approval. The wrong reaction is to compliment out of habit just to keep things pleasant. That turns you into someone no different from everyone before you. The correct reaction is to offer a thoughtful observation without flattery and without rejection. For example, "It sounds solid, but I imagine it has also caused you quite a few problems." When praise does not come immediately, approval from you becomes something that has to be earned. If you only compliment her, her brain will not register you as a point of difference. The fourth situation, she becomes awkward, avoids the topic, or changes the subject when a certain point comes up. Here, she is feeling unsure or insecure. The wrong reaction is to immediately move past it to keep things comfortable, because men often fear making the other person uncomfortable. But skipping over it means you are not truly seeing her. The correct reaction is to gently touch that point without pushing. For example, when you mention that, "I noticed you became a bit cautious." This line makes her feel that you are perceptive and able to see beneath the surface. If you use a judgmental tone or sound overly curious, the effect disappears, but when timed correctly, it activates the desire to prove herself. The fifth situation, she has become used to you always being available and responding consistently. In her mind, your presence starts to feel guaranteed. The wrong reaction is to keep prioritizing her, because men fear that pulling back will break the connection. But the more available you are, the more position you lose. The correct reaction is to set natural boundaries without long explanations. For example, "I already have something else planned that day, maybe another time." When she realizes she is not the only center of your world, the dynamics of emotional investment begin to shift. If used as punishment or as a tactic, it will backfire. But when it comes from your real-life rhythm, it creates very strong pull. The common thread across all 5 situations is this: you are not manipulating emotions. You are simply stopping everything from being too predictable. When you respond from calm observation instead of neediness, her psychological weak points are activated naturally, without force. The most important takeaway after this video is understanding that attraction does not come from doing more, but from stopping the familiar wrong reactions. When you stop trying to please, stop rushing to validate, and stop placing others at the center unconditionally, the way you show up naturally changes. And that change is what creates attraction. What was just shared should not be used when you are anxious, attached to outcomes, or trying to control someone else's emotions. Used from that state, every behavior becomes forced and backfires. Apply these ideas only when you are calm, have standards, and respect yourself. Over the next 7 days, you only need to do 3 simple things. First, notice the moments when you want to compliment, validate, or over-prioritize, and pause for half a beat. Second, keep light boundaries. Do not change your schedule just to accommodate, and do not over-explain when you say no. Third, let the other person invest on their own. You respond correctly, and let the emotions form on their side. If after 1 week you feel lighter when communicating and her reactions start to change, that is a sign you are moving in the right direction. Real attraction always comes after self-control, never from forced effort. If this video helped you recognize a reaction you have gotten wrong before, tap like and share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe to the channel to continue following content that goes deeper into states, boundaries, and the reactions that create lasting attraction.